Strange New Worlds Season 3 can pay off an Enterprise romance first teased 59 years ago. Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 can pay off a romance between two USS Enterprise officers that was first teased 59 years ago. As a new Star Trek show about the USS Enterprise under the command of Captain Christopher Pike, Anson Mount, Star Trek Strange New Worlds is already paying off the very first version of Star Trek. In 1965, the first Star Trek pilot, The Cage, starred Jeffrey Hunter as Captain Pike, Leonard Nimoy as Spock, and Majel Barrett Roddenberry as Number 1, and now all three of those characters have been reimagined for a modern audience. Anson Mount's Captain Pike is a strong, compassionate leader dedicated to a personal code of ethics and the welfare of his crew. Haunted by knowledge of the future accident that will doom him to a locked-in state, Pike is able to risk his life and his career in support of Commander Una Chin Riley, Rebecca Romijn, also known as Number 1. In addition to reimagining old characters, Star Trek Strange New Worlds introduces a new love interest for Pike, the USS Cayuga's Captain Marie Batel, Melanie Scrofano. As Pike's peer, Batel also knows how tough maintaining a relationship can be in Starfleet. Star Trek first teased the possibility of a romance between Captain Pike and Number 1 59 years ago in The Cage. When brought to Talos 4, Pike must choose a mate. If he won't mate with Vina, Susan Oliver, then Yeoman J.M. Colt, Laurel Goodwin, or Number 1 will do. The mind-reading Talosians push the merits of each potential mate. Yeoman Colt is young and strong, whereas Number 1 is prized for her intelligence, and the Talosian confirms she often has fantasies involving you. Pike balks at all the choices, refusing to be forced into the Talosians' menagerie. If this original concept for Star Trek had actually continued, a romance between Hunter's Pike and Barrett Roddenberry's Number 1 might have been inevitable. In The Cage, Pike sees Number 1 as his first officer before he sees her as a woman, but the revelation that Number 1 entertains romantic fantasies about Pike suggests that might have eventually changed. Because Star Trek, the original series, was progressive for its time, a 1960s romance between Captain Pike and a highly competent Number 1 could have been a surprisingly equitable variation on the trope of pairing off two attractive leads. Captain Pike's romance with Captain Batel in Star Trek Strange New Worlds might not last. Throughout Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, Pike has been reluctant to commit to a long-term romantic relationship, which puts Pike and Batel on rocky terms. Pike only seems absolutely certain about Batel when his memories are lost in Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 4, Among the Lotus Eaters, and Chris's love grounds his sense of self. In Strange New Worlds musical episode Subspace Rhapsody, Pike's sung confession reveals their frequent miscommunication makes Pike compelled to hide, even though he loves Marie. The most damning evidence for the short-lived nature of the Pike and Batel romance is that Captain Batel is a new character created for Strange New Worlds who might not survive. At the cliffhanger ending of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2's finale, Hegemony, Marie Batel's life still hangs in the balance thanks to being infested with Gorn eggs. Batel ends the season safely aboard the Enterprise, but as Lieutenant Hammer Bruce Horrick proved, becoming a Gorn incubator is almost certainly a death sentence. Marie's miraculous recovery might not be enough to save Batel and Pike's tenuous relationship. In 1966, Star Trek first boldly went where no one had gone before, introducing audiences to the iconic crew of the USS Enterprise under the command of Captain James T. Kirk. But before Kirk's legendary leadership, there was another captain, Christopher Pike, whose tenure was largely unknown until the reboot of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. The show has been a breath of fresh air for Trekkies, returning to episodic adventures and character-driven storytelling. Now, as Strange New Worlds approaches its third season, there's an intriguing possibility: the opportunity to explore and pay off a romance first teased nearly 6 decades ago in Star Trek, the original series, TOS. This romance is between Captain Pike and his first officer, Number 1, Una Chin Riley, a relationship hinted at but never fully explored until now. The early tease, The Cage, the seeds of this potential romance were planted in 1965's The Cage, the first pilot of Star Trek, which introduced audiences to Captain Pike and Number 1. Though the episode never aired in its original form, it established Number 1 as Pike's steadfast and highly competent first officer. Played by Majel Barrett, who would later become the voice of the ship's computer in Nurse Chapel, Number 1 was a character ahead of her time, cool, intellectual, and fiercely capable. In the brief moments shared between Pike and Number 1, there was a subtle chemistry that suggested more than just professional respect. Though nothing overtly romantic happened in the cage, the trust and understanding between the two hinted at deeper emotions. Pike's guarded nature and Number 1's stoicism, however, left the potential romance unexplored, and as Star Trek transitioned to the Kirk era, Pike's storyline was set aside. For decades, that tease of romantic tension went dormant, until Strange New Worlds brought these characters back into the limelight. Strange New Worlds, rekindling old sparks, the arrival of Strange New Worlds reignited interest in Captain Pike, now played by Anson Mount, and Number 1, portrayed by Rebecca Romijn. From the first season, the chemistry between these two characters has been palpable. Their relationship is built on trust, mutual respect, and a shared sense of duty. Yet beneath the surface, there are lingering questions about whether their bond is purely professional or if there's something more. In Strange New Worlds, Pike is depicted as a more introspective captain, haunted by his knowledge of his tragic future, which was revealed in Star Trek Discovery. Meanwhile, Number 1 remains his closest confidant, offering support and advice as he grapples with the weight of his destiny. This deep emotional connection naturally opens the door to exploring a romantic dynamic between the two. The writers of Strange New Worlds have cleverly laid the groundwork for this potential romance without forcing it. The show's emphasis on character development, combined with the undeniable chemistry between Mount and Romijn, has made the possibility of a romance feel organic rather than contrived. But the time has come for the series to fully explore this relationship, paying off a 59-year-old tease while keeping in line with the series' themes of exploration, both of the cosmos and the human heart. Why now? The third season of Strange New Worlds presents the perfect opportunity to explore this romantic tension, not only because of the character arcs, but also due to the thematic richness it offers. Pike's knowledge of his fate, that he will eventually be horribly disfigured and confined to a wheelchair, gives his relationships a poignant urgency. He knows his time as a captain is limited, which raises the stakes for any personal connections he forms. With Number 1 being his closest ally, exploring their emotional bond could offer a deeply moving storyline. Moreover, Number 1's character has been given more depth in Strange New Worlds, particularly in the second season, when her identity as an Illyrian, an augmented species, was revealed. Her struggle to reconcile her sense of duty with her secret identity mirrors Pike's own inner turmoil about his future. These parallel arcs make them natural emotional partners, and a romance between them could add a new layer of complexity to both characters. What a Pike/Una romance could mean for Star Trek canon if Strange New Worlds were to fully commit to exploring a Pike/Una romance, it would be an interesting and bold move for the franchise. For one, it wouldn't violate any established canon. The original series never delved deeply into Pike's relationships, leaving plenty of room for creative storytelling in Strange New Worlds. Moreover, by focusing on this relationship, the show could offer a fresh take on the classic Star Trek theme of love versus duty. The relationship could also serve as a counterpoint to the more famous Star Trek romances, such as Kirk's numerous affairs or Spock's complicated relationship with